Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, I want to begin with a couple statements, not specific to the nominee before us, Mr. Bove, but general observations as we've had hearings of nominees and on issues since the beginning of the year. It's become clear that President Trump clearly has one litmus test when selecting people to appoint. It's not experience. It's not dedication to our country or the rule of law. It's whether or not a potential nominee is willing to bend or ignore the law to satisfy the president's whims. Now, I understand that elections have consequences. And one consequence is that a president who is elected will get to nominate judges for the duration of his term or her term. But selecting someone with such a deep track record of vindictive, duplicitous behavior, of abuse of power, that is and must be treated as unacceptable. From Mr. Bove's time with the Southern District of New York to his time representing Donald Trump to his time at the Trump Justice Department, it's been demonstrated that he will not let the law stand in the way of doing what he wants. That's why as soon as Mr. Bove joined the Justice Department in an acting, unconfirmed capacity, he began an effort to purge the Department of Justice of perceived, quote, enemies, like the January 6th prosecutors. He even called the January 6th prosecutions, quote, a grave national injustice, and ordered the FBI to produce a list of everyone involved in them. Never mind the fact that he had previously worked on January 6 prosecutions while at the Southern District of New York. And that's why he ordered Southern District of New York prosecutors to dismiss criminal charges against New York Mayor Eric Adams in exchange for Mayor Adams helping to implement President Trump's radical immigration enforcement plan. Mr. Bove's actions in this case led 8 prosecutors, 8, including the interim U.S. Attorney, Danielle Sassoon, who had clerked for Justice Scalia, to resign. But instead of firing him, Donald Trump plans to give him a lifetime appointment to the Third Circuit Court of Appeals in New Jersey, a state that Mr. Bove has very, very little ties to. Now, it's not just Democrats who are concerned. Conservative judicial activist and former Republican staff member of this committee, Ed Wallen, who wrote that Bove has been called, quote, a savage, and likened him to a, quote, mafia henchman. Not my words, just quoting what's been submitted to this committee for consideration. The Wall Street Journal published an editorial urging this committee to ask questions about Bove's qualifications for this seat. They wrote, quote, does Emil Bove have the right judicial temperament? Does he have a judicial philosophy? It's seemingly clear that the more we learn, the answer is no. But we're here to ask questions, and I do have a couple of questions in my time remaining. Mr. Bove, can you share with us how many of the prosecutors assigned to the Capitol siege section were fired after you sent your memo on staffing at the Department of Justice?
I don't recall.
Ballpark?
I don't recall.
All right. Well, I'll submit that in the form of a question for the record to allow you time to jog your memory banks and try to give us a number or at least an estimate. Can you tell me how many January 6 rioters President Trump pardoned?
No, I don't recall.
Okay. Well, that actually kind of makes sense because I don't think when asked, the president himself couldn't give an exact number. When asked, his response was, quote, it would be very, very cumbersome to go and look. You know how many people we're talking about? 1,500 people. To think that on the first day in office, he would have considered case by case that volume of files to make the determination that they should be pardoned, that's clearly not believable. And we know that dozens of those pardoned had prior criminal records, including rape, sexual abuse of a minor, domestic violence, and more. Yes, I'm talking about the January 6th rioters. I'm going to end with this, Madam Chair. I can tell you that a long-serving prosecutor with the D.C. United States Attorney's Office thought that it sent a message that, quote, political violence toward a political goal is acceptable in a modern democratic society. Mr. Bove, you contributed to these actions. What do you think what kind of message do you think this sends to the American people?
I think that the president, in his exclusive discretion under the Constitution.
My question is, what message does this send to the American people? The pardoning of January 6th rioters, many with prior criminal convictions.
And you can answer briefly.
I think that's a question that calls for political views, and under the canons, I'm not able to take a position.
I thought we were talking about public safety and the rule of law. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Chair Schiff.